Yeah, we needed a rage song after what we just witnessed in Aggie basketball. That sucked. Everything about that loss was painful. It was a really good game. There was some really bad basketball that we saw from the Aggies at times. There were some good stretches that they also had at times in the game. But ultimately, it resulted in pain. It resulted in an overtime, let's just say it, choke job to your heated rival in Texas in a game that was really inconsequential for A&M's season standing. You're probably still a 3 seed. You're at worst a 4 seed. It doesn't really change that much. But it's a loss to a rival, and the way it went down just made it absolutely suck. So guys, today's show, we're going to talk about the game. I'm just going to quickly go through it. We're going to relive it. It's going to be painful. We're going to talk about where we go from here. And then we're going to flush that toilet and go right into Aggie football because spring football is just like a week away. I know, it's crazy because baseball starts conference play this weekend, and I'll be going live this weekend a couple times, so we'll be talking about it all weekend. So today we're going to take a chance to talk about this last iteration of Aggie basketball before we get into the real dance where things actually matter. And of course, we're downplaying it. It still sucks, but yeah, things will really start mattering. Your season will end, obviously, with a loss in the next game, and so on and so forth. And we're going to plant the seeds for some Aggie football, spring football right around the corner. I have some early spring watch list items, talking points, storylines. I'm going to throw them out there, and I invite all of you guys to do the same. Y'all can vent about the game right now. That's great. Do that. But when you feel it, give me 1 or 2 A&M spring watch list items you're looking for. I'll give you about 3 or 4 tonight. I think you can guess where we're going to start. We're going to start with some of the most salient, obvious things that this football team needs answering, and we won't get clear, definitive answers in spring, but we'll get a glimpse. We've gotten some glimpses of things that came to fruition through the last couple of springs. We'll talk about it all when we get into it. But let's say what's up to everybody in the chat before we get into the brutal recounting of the game that we just saw. I see a lot of familiar faces. I see Jeb, tough loss for the Ags in basketball. I know, man. Very tough. Why does Phelps continue to shoot threes? Look, through most of the year, I was okay with Phelps taking them, even though he was pretty inconsistent at them. You're an inconsistent team at hitting threes overall, but Phelps did have games where he could impact the game hitting them. And there were times in this game where nothing was working, and I was like, okay, we can try a Phelps 3 here. It would be really nice if we got something going, but it didn't happen, and that definitely hurt our chances today. You have really a two-headed attack with the ball-dominant players between him and Wade Taylor. Manuel Baskey actually played a pretty good game, but yeah, you kind of just had to go down with the shooter there. I mean, I can't complain too much about Phelps getting his shots because he's had such a big role on this team all year. But another part of that was you weren't offensive rebounding at a clip that made missing shots much more stomachable. So it just exacerbated the deal. And yeah, it sucked to have a bad game from Phelps in this one. Again, an inconsequential game, but very consequential for our emotional well-being. Aaron says, I've gone from thinking the Ags had an outside chance to make a run to no clue whatsoever what they will do in the dance. They're just as likely to be one as done as they are to make a historic run. And Aaron, you're kind of echoing sentiments that I've made throughout the entire basketball season. The way this team plays, I feel like it's an equalizing style of basketball. They don't have the offensive firepower to pull away in a lot of games. Therefore, a lot of games are close. But that same style of basketball also keeps them competitive in games against teams that might be significantly more offensively talented than they are. So it's like kind of this equalizer that makes every game kind of scary. I do think, knock on wood, right now, like a week out, that A&M has a good chance at any of their first round draws. But we saw today what a hungry dog team looks like against A&M. Texas matched A&M's physicality today. They did, and I know we choked the game in a lot of ways, but I'm giving credit to where it is due. And Texas played with great energy and great physicality today that matched A&M's. And by the time the second overtime rolled around, I know that's extenuating circumstances, the energy levels seemed kind of equalized, and it's because they were also playing a very physical brand of basketball. And I don't think the refs, came to play ball with that. I think the refs were pretty bad today. Anyway, I agree. I have no idea what the hell's going to happen. I do think they win the first round, but outside of that, I have no idea, man. And yep, we'll just have to go through this again for sure. Sawyer, good to see you, Sawyer. Tough loss for basketball. I think baseball can get it done tomorrow, though. Really good opportunity for baseball to get on the right track this weekend to start SEC play. Unfortunately, Caden Sorrell's debut has been delayed. Apparently, just not getting the feedback and results from that hammy that they had hoped for, and it sounds like he will not be in this weekend. And it might be a couple more weeks till we see Caden Sorrell. So, A&M still probably capable of winning a game versus Bama, kind of a mid-upper tier SEC team. We'll see what happens, man. I've come to just not go into these last few baseball games with great expectations. We got to see it play out. Obviously, that you thought you were coming out of like the shadow of the early season until you dropped another couple games. So we'll see what happens this weekend. I'll be going live for multiple games this weekend, so we'll be talking baseball all weekend. We'll stick to basketball and football primarily today, but if you want to talk baseball, you want to call and talk about baseball, that's totally fine. But we shall see. James still thinks the Ags can make a run. They're certainly capable. Again, their style of play will keep them in a lot of games, but it also makes a lot of games very scary. So we'll see. I think we'll need, obviously, free throw shooting. I haven't talked about the game even, but free throw shooting, I think clutch moments were bad today. I think it'd be nice to get more from Payne and Phelps. If Wade is the head of the snake, I mean, it's like Phelps and Payne are right there with him. They're all... Those two guys did not have a great game. They were not very productive today, and I think that showed. You can look at the little moments in the game all you want, but when you look at the big picture, you didn't get productivity from those two guys. We'll need that. Jeb says, this is typical Aggie basketball. They're inconsistent. You don't know what you're going to get from them. They're consistent in some ways. They're very inconsistent offensively. I'll give you that. They're consistent in their effort and physicality and defense, but they're very inconsistent offensively. They're very inconsistent kind of decision makers with the ball. So, and honestly, it was a bad defensive play that led them into overtime. We'll talk about it in a second. I might even play a couple clips for y'all because there's a couple things I want to look at. It's truly a bad loss to the T-Sips. I'm going to have to agree with you there, Chris Cobb. It was a bad loss because we had chances to win it, and that's what makes a loss bad, especially against an inferior opponent. Which, I mean, can we even say that? Let's be real. They beat us twice this year. It just sucks, man. I'm afraid we'll be one and done. I think we'll be okay with the first-round matchups, but hopefully you're not right. You could be right. Hopefully you're wrong. Hopefully that doesn't happen because I would be salty. Yeah, I don't have confidence in the playoffs, but you never know. I think we win a game. Beyond that, I have no freaking clue. At least the song is good. Yeah, I had to get the Rage song going to start. At least we could talk about spring football now. I know, man. I know. We could talk a little bit about it. No feel for how Aggie basketball might do in postseason play. That's the general sense I'm getting now, that we just really don't know what to expect. You've heard my take. I think we get the first game. T-Sis will make the NIT tournament. Will they accept that invite? I don't even know. D lineman and another big wide receiver is my top priority in the spring window. We'll see who pops into that spring window. That'll be a whole conversation to have after spring ball. I wouldn't mind another corner. I've kind of lost faith in Javen Thomas. I wouldn't lose faith in any of those sophomores, man. It was a young corner room. I know it sucked in the bowl game particularly, but throughout the season, giving up explosives. It was a very young unit in a year one of a program. I'm okay with adding another for sure and adding to competition there, but I still really like Dalton Brooks. I still really like Will Lee. I'm still not throwing out Des Ricks. Yes, he had his lumps, especially in that bowl game throughout the season. That's a young-ass man who's a freshman-age player in a new system around other young players who are also new to that system. Same thing for Marcus Radcliffe. Same thing for Javen Thomas. But yes, if you want to add corners, do it. Gig 'em, and I'm always going to be a Texas Aggie. Amen. Me too, man. We'll be here, and we'll be doing it till the day we die. Let's turn the page on basketball and talk spring football. Yeah, they're inconsistent at being inconsistent. Yeah, they're consistent at being inconsistent. The second loss against Texas should never have happened. The 20-point thing, yeah. Well, I guess I'll just give my quick few thoughts about the game. I think first thing that comes to mind, even before like the Buzz timeout, if you watched the game, you know there was a moment there where Buzz called a timeout, and right as he was calling it, Wade Taylor hit a three. We'll talk about that in a second. I think my biggest thing, I just mentioned one of them, is not getting the best out of two of your top three players, as far as I'm concerned, Phelps and Payne. Free throw shooting. You had so many opportunities to ice this game with free throws. I think in the last 5 or so minutes of the game, you missed about 5 free throws. I think the team outside of Wade Taylor was like under 50% from the line this game. And in a game that goes to double overtime, I don't have to tell you how important that is. And we've seen, and we know, the way Aggie basketball plays. Very physical brand of basketball. They foul a lot. They get fouled a lot. Missing free throws, hitting as kind of a cohort, as a group, 50% or less of your free throws, will lose this team in particular games because you don't have the other offensive dynamics to make up for that. So first and foremost, it's free throws, and it's not getting the best out of those few players. Late game execution was very poor in overtime. Let me see. I have the notes here. How did this thing go down? Okay, so the first half was obviously gross. They dared us to shoot. We took the bait. Obviously, you have to take open shots. We missed a lot of them, and more importantly, we weren't getting offensive boards to kind of match, our shot attempts. We talked about that at the top of the show. In the second half, you actually start hitting some shots. You make it a game. You get yourself a nice little lead. And then their great player, Trey Johnson, who is a great player, that's the best part of their entire team. He gets hot. They get a lead. You actually battle back, as A&M does. You're down 9. You come back. It's a close late game. You make it to overtime. And in that overtime game is where all the shenanigans happen. In about the last 2 minutes, minute and a half of that first overtime, that's where everything happens. So you miss a shot. Texas gets the rebound. They go wild on their fast break. They throw the ball away. Wade Taylor gets the ball back. He kind of regroups. They go on a drive. They miss the layup. The ball's going flying. Payne comes down with the ball. And then Buzz Williams starts calling a timeout right away. He wants to regroup. Understandably so. I know this team kind of thrives in the scramble of the game, but this was a particular kind of situation where you just dive on a loose ball and you call a timeout and you reset the play. The refs did not see this timeout because Buzz was calling this timeout for about 4 seconds before Wade Taylor actually shot that three that got called off because of the timeout that the refs finally detected 4 or so seconds later. So I'm just saying that to say that I know we're giving Buzz a hard time. I was giving Buzz a hard time for that timeout that X'd out the ensuing Wade Taylor three-point attempt that went in, and the team looked bummed out about it. The refs were asleep at the wheel there. Buzz was calling a timeout when the ball was still in the paint, so that three shouldn't even have happened. Anyways, the ATO is where, I start looking at these late game execution situations and scratching my head. You have 7 seconds left on the shot clock in the first overtime with about a minute and a half to go. You draw up an inbound lob play to Payne with about 7 seconds on the clock. That's like a play you run with 2 or fewer seconds left on the clock, and it got tipped. And I don't know, maybe they saw something in the defensive coverages that made them feel like they had something there. But, I mean, you just had a clutch C.J. Wilcher 3 off of an ATO inbound play on an elevator screen at the end of regulation. You could have gone to that. Wade Taylor's drawing fouls at a very high clip in the entire second half and overtime. You could have gone back to Wade. You could have posted up Payne. I really didn't like that one-and-done look coming out of that ATO, and I'm pretty sure most of Aggie Land agrees with that one. But that's what happens, and you don't get the shot. They go down the other side of the court, and they get a corner three on a driving kick. But the guy shuffles his feet. They don't call the travel. It could have been a travel. These refs were bad all game. I feel like we got the worst of it. Both teams definitely got it. These refs were bad. There was an intense game. I don't think these refs lived up to the intensity of the game. I think they were very inconsistent in their calls. Some ticky-tack stuff was called. They let some really hard stuff go. It was just all over the place, and they missed one there. So they hit a three. We're up 1. We just turned the ball over. We just turn the ball over on the next possession when we're up 1. We have a drive, and we lose the ball. They get the ball back. But they missed their shot, and we get the board. Payne gets fouled on the rebound, and he's one of our worst free throw shooters, our second worst free throw shooter. He goes 1 for 1. On their last offensive possession, another one of those late-game execution deals. You kind of just botch a routine zone defense assignment handoff, covering the guy in the paint relative to the guy in the corner. It was Coleman and another guy. They mixed up their communication. The big man gets a wide-open dunk with 4 seconds to go in the game. You go to the double overtime, and Texas takes it there. I think losing the game the way you did in that first overtime just kind of zapped the juice out of the team, and there really wasn't a chance in the second overtime. Texas kind of separated in the last minute or so. But that first overtime, the late-game execution, having a 4-point advantage, all that stuff I just mentioned happened when A&M had a 4-point advantage with a chance to go up 6 or 7. And you just squandered the opportunities there. So late game execution, is that stuff going to come back to bite us in the butt in this tournament? Is that the stuff that's going to kill us? Because you know how intense this game was with Texas playing for their season lives on the line because they have to win multiple SEC tournament games to make this to make the real tournament. You're going to be playing up against teams that are just as hungry. So how does A&M fare against that? How does A&M's brand of basketball translate to these one-off season on the line games. It didn't go well when the other team had that, attribute. Let's see how it goes when A&M has the same attribute and A&M is also playing like their season's on the line, because it will be. So we already talked about the chances. I say A&M wins one game in this tournament at least, and beyond that, we'll reevaluate. We'll see how they look in round one. I believe they win that game. We'll go from there. We'll go live sometime around there, so we'll talk more about it. And that's what happens, man. Free throws, getting your best players involved, playing CJ Wilcher and targeting him more from like a coaching perspective, me critiquing that. I mean, everyone sees this. Why doesn't CJ Wilcher get more opportunities? That was something I didn't get. I thought Manny Obaski played a pretty good game. Thought you could have maybe leaned on him a little bit more. But free throws, getting the best out of your guys, late game execution, and you lose to your freaking rival, and it freaking sucks. We're moving on now. Let's check in with the chat, then we'll talk about football. Thank goodness it's over. Yeah, but Thomas was bad as freshman and sophomore year. I know some guys are late bloomers. I think sophomore to junior, you got to give him that chance. You got to give him that sophomore to junior, off season is what really helps a lot of guys. Bring on baseball. Bama will choke at Bluebell. I hope so, man. I think we have a good chance this weekend, but we shall see, man. Obviously, we don't fully trust this team yet, right? They're not clicking. They haven't become consistent yet. We have to see. We've seen some high highs. We've seen way too many lows. Good opportunity this weekend, Chris. After what I heard from the Shamars and Scorton from draft talks, I'm interested to see how it affects the D-line transfers. Yeah, we'll see. I'll talk about D-line today for sure. But shout out to those guys. I hope the Spurs draft Trey Johnson at number 10. It's on the table for sure. I wouldn't mind. Why can't these football players develop? Because I feel like that's what's holding us back all these years. Absolutely, Lil Shy. I think it's a little bit of that. This is all, Elko, Josh Pate, all that stuff they've been talking about the last week, but it's very true. I mean, what do you get out of these high Jimbo Fisher recruiting rankings? What do you get out of it? Well, not enough wins to show for relative to the talent you're bringing in when measuring from that high school lens. It's development, it's evaluations, it's buy-in, it's getting the right guys to kind of fit what you're trying to do. It's about getting guys through, in diverse position groups, because a lot of those rankings were bolstered by the defensive line. You weren't very well-rounded even in your best 2022 class. There were too many D linemen to play. Now they're all transferred or moved on, but that's the next step, and that's why Elko's here, because the previous regime, for whatever strengths it had, which was bringing in the talent, they couldn't develop them, and they couldn't bring in the right guys. So let's see. That's the big thing that Elko's trying to accomplish now, Lil Shy. Good to see you, man. When does the spring portal open? 4/16/25. Is that accurate? Connor with the answer. That's like the same day the spring game is, I believe. Noble Guy, good to see you. You missed a brutal Aggie basketball loss. We just went through it, so you didn't miss too much good stuff. Thomas just doesn't seem like a guy you can count on for long stretches of the game, hoping he makes a huge jump his junior year. Player development has been bad since joining the SEC. 5-star D linemen are pretty much gone. Yeah, we didn't have much to show for it. Even our two high-end D linemen who were going to get drafted this year, 3 of them maybe didn't perform to their expectations last year, at least to our hopes. So that stuff has to improve, and we're going to see a whole new look at D-line. All right. Catches us up with the chat. By the way, the call-in link is pinned in the chat. If you want to call in, we can talk straight football now if you want. You can talk baseball, basketball, wherever you want to go. But I am going to ask you for at least one early spring storyline talking point. I see Theo's waiting in the chat. Anybody else wants to get in, now's a good time. I'm going to give you my spring talking points, just a few of them, because I have a few videos planned, and we're going to keep going live through this spring session and while all this other sports stuff, while the tournament happens. We'll go live on the next few Thursdays and like the classic show goes. But today I'm going to set some kind of big picture watch list items that I have that I'll be keeping an eye on, and I'm sure they're going to overlap with what you have. But yeah, we're just a few weeks away from spring football. How much can you take from spring? You got to take it with a grain of salt. Depth chart's not set. You're going to see players miss. You're probably going to see a bunch of seniors sit out the spring game. But we'll do our best given coach press conferences, insider, notes that we get, the few stuff that we do get. Elko does a great job keeping it a tight-lipped program. And we will get some stuff from the spring game. We actually had a couple of, items that we detected in the last couple of spring games that came to fruition in the game. For instance, a couple of years ago, it was very obvious in the spring game that you didn't have enough corners. Well, in the 2023 season, that's when Josh DeBerry, who's like a natural nickel, had to play corner, and you just got burnt over and over and over again at corner. Well, we saw that in the spring game. You had like Chappelle and then walk-ons playing in the spring game. I don't think you'll see that this year, but things like that are things you can notice in spring that are going to come true. You don't have anybody kind of rising up and, taking valuable reps and having good reps in a spring game. I think that's something to look for. If, the right players aren't sitting in that given position, there's always that, thing that you could say about a position group. But last year, Scooby Williams, great spring game, turned out to be a pretty solid player, and I'm pretty damn excited to see Scooby Williams this year. We saw run game deficiencies in the spring game. We saw the D-line maybe not looking like the best run-stop D-line that we had seen in the last couple of years, missing out on McKinley Jackson, missing out on guys like Isaiah Rakes, and we saw that come to fruition this year. So a couple of things you can detect from watching these spring games that we can take forward. But I think the first thing that I'm looking for in spring that we can easily check off is when we get that first Mike Elko press conference, which is probably going to be next week. We're going to get health updates, most likely if the questions are asked, on Le'Veon Moss, Tyreek Chappelle, and Mark Naboo. And if we don't get it there, we'll see in the spring game, or at least through practice glimpses or notes, we'll see where these guys are at. We've seen Moss and Naboo in a lot of the pre-spring game training footage, so it looks like they're on a really good path to be ready for fall camp, and that's what I'm looking for. I want these guys to be healthy at least midsummer going forward so they can get back into full go training, get into full physical contact in fall camp. That's the best way you can get into the season, obviously. So those are three names we're looking out for: Moss, Chappelle, Naboo, and I'm sure there are more updates. So the first thing we're looking for is obviously health, and we'll get that pretty quickly and easily. But getting more in depth here, I think the first position group that every Aggie should be looking for this spring is the defensive line. You obviously lose your 3 NFL caliber players. You bring back 1 starter in Albert Regis. I have no concerns about Albert Regis as a down-to-down guy. He's a quality defensive lineman, but he needs dudes around him. He's a great player, but he's not going to be, that superstar that just elevates the position. He's a great leader. He's a great, I think, just energy guy for the team. He's a hustle player. I love Albert Regis. But you're going to need guys like DJ Hicks to continue to step forward. And I thought watching DJ Hicks, the little bit we got his freshman year, early last season, I thought he was kind of at a plateau into his college progression. I don't think we saw the strides we were hoping for early in the DJ Hicks kind of arc. And then I think we saw a little bit more as this last season, kind of concluded. We saw his best game versus LSU against a really good offensive line. So DJ Hicks will be one of the most pivotal players that's like a surefire returning rotation guy that we're watching next season. Let's see where he's at. Let's see how he physically looks. Let's see how dominant he is, and he will be going up against a really good offensive line because we have no questions on the other side of our line of scrimmage. We feel good about this Aggie offensive line. It'll be a good test for Hicks, and we'll see how he fares this spring. We'll see the rumblings. We'll see what we get in the spring game from him. But in terms of personnel and who's filling a role, strong side defensive end. I mean, who's even the starter there? I think it's very reasonable to assume that Cassius Howell is the starting edge rusher. And you brought in some guys, but you didn't really bring back a true strong side defensive end. Is it a Landon Rink going to move to defensive end? He's a 280-pound athletic freak. Can he do it? Is Tyler Onyedem, the transfer out of Iowa State, who primarily played defensive tackle, some defensive end, in a little bit of a different defensive system over at Iowa State? Can he do it? Are there any bodies that we think of as edge rushers that this team wants to try on that strong side, on running downs, on first downs? Because you're going to see 2 edge guys on passing plays, but I'm talking about in run situations. Who's the strong side edge? They move a TJ Searcy over? Solomon Williams to be able to do it? That's a huge question mark on this team, is who's even the starting strong side defensive end, but almost as importantly, who's in that rotation? Who are they looking at in that position group? So that's another thing we're going to be looking at really closely. And then I am interested to see this edge group. You got a lot of options at edge. You have your lead guy coming back. I think we could feel pretty good about the edge rusher because Searcy and Cassius Howell on third down could be a great combo. Again, you have Solo Williams, who I think is poised for a breakout kind of a season, at least in terms of just seeing him in action and getting quality reps out of him. I don't think he'll be a starter or anything like that, but we'll get some quality stuff, I think, out of him. And Pemba out of UGA, true freshman Marco Jones. Who's in a play? Who's in this rotation, and who's willing to play, or who are they willing to put at strong side? I think it's a huge question mark of this team, and there might be further addressing in that spring portal. And also the depth at defensive tackle. I mean, are one of these freshmen going to have to step up? I think Onyedem will probably play some of those rotational roles and get a lot of reps there, but you could also be looking at him as strong side defensive end, so you need more. And I think if I'm looking at these freshmen to see which one has a chance for immediate impact, I think it's DJ Sanders. I think his body's the most ready-made. I think Landon Rink has a chance too. I'm curious to see what they do with him. And I think Chase Sims will probably be a little bit more of a developmental guy. I think he's a really good piece to get in. A very late surger, a late bloomer in the last recruiting cycle. Played his best football later in his career. Credit the Aggies for getting on him as early as they did. But I'm looking at that defensive line rotation and the strong side defensive end rotation, as I'm sure you are too. Now, I'll move to the offensive side of the ball. Again, I'm not going to give you every watch list item because I have more stuff planned where we'll be feeding this stuff out over the next few weeks. But my big offensive kind of thing I'll be looking at, I'm very high on this offense. You'll learn over the next few weeks and through the offseason that I believe this offense has a chance to be one of the better offenses in the conference this year. But I really want to see the next level of this passing game. Obviously, it was lackluster last year. I want to see how Marcel Reed-Taylor it looks. You got a lot of RPO, catch-and-go types of players added to the team. Kevin Concepcion, Mario Craver, Ashton Bethel-Roman could fit that mold as well. You have a Terry Bussey who fits that mold. Obviously, you lose your size in Noah and Jade. But it seems like you've added kind of a tailor-made group to Marcel Reed to run that RPO, get a lot of sideline-to-sideline stuff going. We saw a lot more of that stuff in the bowl game where the team actually had a chance to stop and prepare a full, fleshed-out offense for Marcel Reed over a month or so of bowl practice. And we'll see a lot more of that. This team has spent nothing but time developing an offense that caters exactly to Marcel Reed. Because I talk about this all the time. Remember, this thing was built for Connor Wigman last year. And it's no insignificant factor that having a player that plays so differently than Connor and Marcel Reed have to take the helm mid-season is a detriment to your offensive flow and your offensive game plan. That's a massive adjustment. And it makes sense to bring in a guy like the UAB transfer who's named Jacob Zeno, who has run the football, who is a veteran, who can run the Marcel Reed style as the backup this season, because you don't want to get in that situation again. So I really want to see, obviously, the receiver tandem, the receiver rotation. I'm sure we'll get Concepcion. I'm sure we'll get Bussey. I'm sure we'll get Craver as long as Craver's eligible to play. He had a little bit of a run-in with the law recently. It seemed to be somewhat minor. We'll see what happens there. And Ashton Bethel-Roman's a guy that Coach Elko has recently mentioned as a guy that you're going to start to recognize very quickly this year. I'm sure most of us in this chat are ready for it and are anticipating it. But I want to see how this offense runs under Marcel Reed. I want to see the dynamic with Ruben Owens, who's a great pass catcher in his own right. And I want to see how they play off of this, what could be, if not elite, really damn good offensive line. It maybe wasn't elite last year. It wasn't elite last year, but it was much improved and it was really good. So I'm really excited to see exactly what this passing game kind of develops into. And I think we're going to have a great power running game. I think we're going to run a lot of power once again, especially with Le'Veon Moss. Once he's healthy, I doubt we'll see him in spring. But I want to see this passing game. I want to see the RPO game. I want to see this thing and how it works for Marcel Reed. And again, since Marcel can't be tackled, Marcel can't receive contact, you might not see it in a full go. That's the thing about spring. You won't see like the full picture. But let's at least get an idea of how this offense is going to run when Marcel Reed is the guy that it's fully built around. All right. I gave you a few on the offensive side of the ball. I gave you a few on the defensive side of the ball. I gave you the health piece. I want to hear yours. So, guys, put in the chat, what are your spring watch list items? Way too early. We'll revisit this over the next few weeks, and then we'll get right into the calls. I have Theo and Noble Guy in the chat. I'll get to you guys right after we talk to the chat here. Turner's a strong side defensive end on a D tackle. He'll fit perfectly on a 3-4. Any callers? We have Noble and Theo waiting, Jeb. We'd love to hear from you tonight if you want to call. You don't have to, though. All three of them said Elko's system had them focus on other things rather than pinning ears back and rushing the passer. Yeah, I think we got a little bit too cute this season with some of our defensive line calls. Too many stunts, slants, stuff like that, instead of just going head up with the talent that they have. Lost a bit to a guy who said free throw shooting is muscle memory. He said he could make lost a bet to a guy who said free throw shooting is muscle memory, so he can make 5 out of 10 with his eyes closed. It's kind of true. I kind of want another LB2. I don't think it's necessary, but I wouldn't be opposed. Too bad Josh Salazar didn't pan out. Yeah, he bet on himself. I think he was actually preferred walk-on and just kind of got handled through NIL and didn't work out here. He transferred back to Florida. I think USF now. Mpemba, yeah, he transferred from UGA. He's a defensive end. We'll see. He didn't do much for UGA. He's a project. Howell has a good year. He could be a first rounder, 100%. I think he's probably the biggest breakout candidate on this year. At least, like, I mean, we know what he is. I thought he was solid in his role last year. Damn near elite, at least within, like, his off-the-bench, edge-rushing role. But let's see if that transfers to, full-time starter, majority of reps kind of player. Because if he does, and it does transfer, and we do get it, this guy's going to be a nationwide breakout kind of a player. He has potential. We shall see. Whatever happened to that receiver who stepped away and transferred to Tech? Okay, so I talked about this a couple times. I forgot to mention it today. Thanks for bringing it up. I am not acknowledging Micah Hudson as part of the team until we hear otherwise. Right now, since he's not with the team, that's the last we heard. Everything else is rumor. I'm just not counting him towards the depth chart right now. I don't think there's any reason to talk about him until we get him back. If we do, at that point, we'll talk to him as if he's here. Talk about him as if he's here. So I'm just avoiding it because right now I don't expect him to be here. We'll see. We'll just wait and see mode there. I just don't want to get into it about a guy that's not really here right now. So we'll see what happens. I don't trust that Howell will really get the opportunity to show that. He'd be a high-round player based on athleticism on previous tape. He's going to be our down-to-down starter this year. He's going to be our starting edge. He's going to be playing a majority of reps for this team, I would think. So he should be good. Rylan Kennedy at defensive end, a guy I failed to mention today, just another strong side defensive, weak side defensive end. Maybe he's grown up. He was, I think, like 230 coming out of high school, was 245 last year. If he blows up, maybe he can start alongside Cassius Howell. This team is really high on Rylan Kennedy. We saw some really good stuff, particularly early in the year from Rylan Kennedy. I think Rylan Kennedy was definitely, at times, a victim to what was plaguing the team, and that was not able to wrap up quarterbacks or players in the backfield. What would have been advantageous plays for A&M turned into advantageous plays for the opponent. That happened often. Happened to a lot of players. We got to clean that up as a team. But Kennedy surely has the developmental path and the talent to do it. So good call bringing up Rylan Kennedy, Mr. A&M. Good to see you, man. I think we need some guard depth. All our guards are literally freshmen and redshirt fish. Okay, so O-line. It'd be nice to get one more. We'll see what happens. I really like our kind of rotation, not necessarily our depth. I think most O-lines are comfortable with a 7-man rotation if you're going to rotate at all. And I think we are versatile in that rotation because right now, if you go with the same starters that ended last year, it's Zune, Basantis, Fayu, Armaje Reed-Adams, and Crownover. And then you have Fothery, who can play either tackle position in a pinch. And then you have Naboo, who can play center or right guard in a pinch. I would wager he could probably play left guard as well. So you're at least versatile in your backups, but you're right. It would be nice to get one more quality guard. But at this point, I think we should be happy with what we have. Again, adding it would be great. I don't think it's necessary, I would say. But it'd be nice. You do like Zeno as a good addition. Yeah, he's perfect. He's a perfect backup, great veteran leader for the room that doesn't really have a lot of upperclassmen. Yeah, really good to add him. Really want to see a full season with Mark Naboo. Me too, man. He seems healthy. He seems healthy based on the footage we've gotten. We'll get more info soon. How do you think Keoti Armstrong is going to be this season? That's a good question. And with this tight end room, I expect Theo to be at the top of that food chain. I expect Nate Borkesher, the transfer out of Nebraska, veteran, transfer, blocking tight end. I expect him to play a lot. So those two right there and Amari Nyblack maybe in the passing situations, I think it might be tough for Keoti to find early playing time, but I think he's a viable option if spring and fall camp go well for him. From what I saw in the Alamo Dome All-American game that I attended a couple months ago at this point, I mean, great athleticism, elite size, elite length, but definitely looks like a player that was more of a receiver in high school. A lot of technical stuff to work on in blocking. And when you bring in a couple of veterans from Auburn and Nebraska to kind of shore up that blocking, you have Theo Miller-Nordstrom now as a senior. I think it'll be tough for Keoti to get a lot of reps unless he just wows us in these camps. But long-term, sky's the limit for Keoti Armstrong, man. I don't know if it's this season. If it is, it might be farther down the road unless he just absolutely explodes in these camps like I'm saying. But I think we have some good options with the upperclassmen at tight end before Keoti. Because, I mean, Nyblack's also a senior. You should be leaning on your seniors. You really should be, especially in a room with as many as the tight end room has. I'll call when everyone's finished. No problem, Jeb. Haven't given up on baseball, but it's never too early to bring the spring football talk. Yeah, I'm going live probably twice this weekend for baseball, so I figure we just go right to football today before we get into baseball for the whole weekend. What's Mario Cravers? It's a good question. We'll see. We'll see. Spoken like a real Texas Tech Red Raider. I know Connor's a Red Raider. Why was Micah a 5-star? He sucks. That's copium, and I get it, but you might get him back, so who knows? I think Craver is good. Arrested by campus police. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Campus police enemy number 1. Kennedy hasn't played much football, so he's still a work in progress. Blake Ivy, I think, is our swing guard, but I would look at an upperclassman if you can. It'd be great, but again, I think it's greedy at this point. I like having 2 versatile backups. I think it's as good as you can ask. And, you've been recruiting the position pretty well. So I think guys are poised to step up there. But, again, add it if you can. Depth at O-line is rare and hard to get. Fathery not good at guard. No. He'll play either tackle. But, again, I think Naboo or Fayu could play either guard if they had to. Don't know where Rink will find the field, but I've heard nothing but praise for this guy. Freak with a motor. That's what I was just talking about, Gary, maybe before you came in. I think someone mentioned this. I don't remember who, but it's a really good point. At 280, insane motor, insane athleticism, played tight end on 7-on-7s. Maybe they look at him as potential to move to strong side defensive end, kind of, trim a little bit of fat and let him just use that quickness and that athleticism there instead of just a down-to-down defensive tackle. Maybe. I think he could probably fit that mold if he wanted to or if they wanted him to, but that's a wait-and-see thing for sure. Maybe that gets some more playing time as well. I agree. Just like the NFL backup O-linemen are hard to come by. Yeah, exactly. People projecting Stewart as a first-round based off athleticism and Scorton on his tape before he transferred. Unless Elko changes it up, I don't see Howell being drafted as high. Oh, he's changing it up. So last year you had someone else calling the plays. The defensive coordinator called the plays. This year Elko will call the plays, and our pass rush was pretty elite last time Mike Elko called the plays with Clemens and Tyree Johnson and DeMarvin Leal and Peavy. Great pass rush when Elko was calling. So we're hoping to relive some of that magic this year. You think Armstrong's going to play early? I'll see. We'll see. Why do I feel skeptical about Nyblack? I do too, but we'll see. It's a great body. He's just never really panned out at 2 stops where, a lot of players have a chance to be really good. I don't know. I don't expect like a magical change this year, but a gradual change might be enough to get him some productivity. So we'll see. We'll see. It's again, great athleticism, great size to get in. The Tennessee edge Pierce is the same size as Howell. He's projected to go early. I don't know how I feel about Nyblack. Yeah. Coyote's been in my spaces along with the kid from the Dallas area. They've been talking a little bit about spring ball. Nice. What are they saying? What are they saying in there? I mean, Coyote's going to have a great career here. I just think when you have 3 seniors in play at tight end, 4 seniors in play at tight end, it's like you really want to lean on those guys unless Coyote's just a beast. I like being greedy. I know. I would like to see Rink start out at strong side defensive end. Reminds me of 2012 Spencer Neely. He ran a 4-4 in a system that allowed him to do that. Howell could be able to, but the concern is more about the system than the player. We'll see this year. It's going to be a change from last year's system. I'm glad Elko's taking over on defense. Yeah, it's a weird thing, right? Because we just complained for about 4 years about Jimbo calling the plays and not leaning into the CEO role. Elko is a bit more organized than Jimbo. I don't think anyone would dispute that. So we'll see how he handles calling the plays and being the head coach. That'll be an interesting dynamic to watch. But again, I think offensive side of the ball, he'll be able to do it. So we'll see. We'll see. It's interesting. I think the play calling will be better, but we'll see how the game is managed with your coach having 2 different hats on, multiple hats on, but adding another big hat in game. All right, going straight to the calls. Theo, you're on with Drew. How you feeling, man? Good to hear from you, sir. Theo, I think you're muted.
Yep, I was muted.
Ah, you're good. You got hit with the mute bug. How you feeling, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just kind of sitting back enjoying listening to you, man.
I know, it's been a while. I was looking at it, and I think the last live show I did was when Micah, left the team for a while. So that was about a month ago, but it's good to be back here talking football. Unfortunately, we have to talk about the basketball loss first, but these things happen.
Yes, sir. So, as far as the off-season stuff, I really won't be able to say anything until the spring game. Kind of going to be in a wait-and-see approach for that. Just because I know what we have, but I want to see it pieced together.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I think I have a concept of what we're going to be like, but I need to know if that thought process is going to be real.
So what's your concept? What's your rabbit hole here? Where does it start?
I think we are going to end up looking a lot more.
Oh, Theo, your screen went to sleep. You got to tap it. You're back.
I think it's going to be a lot more of what we thought it would actually be in terms of the Kansas State playbook.
Yeah.
I think with our guys, I think we will probably end up doing more power as long as we're healthy.
Right.
Especially with Reed Adams. When Reed Adams was there, it seemed like we did better in the power game.
Yep.
I also think we will be able to use the screenplays more often with the wide receivers that we have.
Our screen game, our short game, our catch and run game should be dynamic this year. That might be one of the stronger aspects of the team, I would think.
Right. Which, I mean, I think that's going to lead us to doing more RPO stuff.
For sure.
Which a lot of people think, well, RPO is just really easy to do, but it's not. When I was a part of the coaching staff at ETBU, it took a while for the quarterbacks. The first 2 weeks of fall practice was literally just learning how to read the linebackers, the safeties, and the corners for those reads on the read options.
Yeah.
So it takes a while to get the timing down. It's pretty much the triple option, except passing.
Yes.
So you have to repetition that as much as you do if you were to run the triple option that Navy runs or Army runs.
Yeah, and last year, I mean, we saw the effects of that exact difficulty. It was a first-year system, so it wasn't hammered in. You had the quarterback change from the guy who had been repping this new system, and then it had to be adjusted for the new quarterback, and we saw that processing speed at times affect the team. And that's a lot of snap decisions and reactions to make for a young quarterback in a new system. And I think we saw it get better in the bowl game and in the Auburn game.
Exactly. I think we'll see more like the Auburn game, and we'll see more of like the bowl game offense.
Yes.
Versus what we particularly saw against Missouri.
Right.
If that makes sense.
100%.
Missouri was more of a down the field, medium range attack, and I'm pretty sure that's what we wanted to run with Connor.
Yeah.
Because that fits Connor's game. And then against Auburn and USC, we saw more of a slant post, get the ball to the quarterback or to the wide receivers on the run, get it to them accurately, let them make the plays.
Right.
So I think that's what we'll see more offensively. Defensively, I'm going to say I think we're still going to be very disappointed in the pass rush department in the sense of what we expect out of the talent versus what we will get. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, and I know that goes against what you just said. But even with Tyree and Neal or O'Neal and all those guys that we had with
Elko in 21 and 20.
Yes, it still was very much of a D-line that was a read and react D-line versus an attacking D-line.
Right. The thing about that D-line, if I remember correctly, it's been a while now, but it seemed like the pass rush was consistently opportune. It seemed like it never fully faded the team.
Right.
This last season, it felt like we would just go stretches where it was just dead, or they would get a pass rush and not wrap up. It felt like there were more full lulls and just getting pressure this last season. I would say more so getting the quarterback contacted or down than pressure even. Whereas last year, it at least you could, it felt like they were scheming up better on passing situations in the right situation back in the day.
Right. I feel like where the difference between those pass rushes and the pass rushes that we will see this year is I think we're going to be more athletic at the the DTs, and that's going to allow us to get more pressure up the middle. Um,
I don't know. I'm thinking about that. It was Regis and Shamar Turner. Shamar Turner's pretty athletic for a DT.
okay, but look at the DTs we got coming in this year. And I'm comparing it to Jaden Peavy and Co.
Right.
in 22.
I'm thinking
You
Hicks and
know,
Regis. That's a pretty athletic duo right there. But, I mean,
yes.
yeah.
And then even Landon Rink and the backup DTs,
Yeah.
they're all. I don't see anyone the size of Peavy or Baltimore Ravens DT now.
Matabike. I think the
Matabike.
one guy that has a chance to be that is DJ Sanders. We'll see what his development's like.
Right. And then I just kind of worry that, how do I put it? I'm more worried that we're about being physically sound and assignment based at the D line to play with our hair on fire and attack upfield. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That
think
was
we're
our
going to
problem
be.
last year.
I think we're going to be more worried about stopping.
Oh, you cut out. More worried about stopping the run. Yeah. I think.
Than we will.
Go ahead. Sorry.
More stopping the run like we were last year than pass rush.
Yeah.
But I just feel that way. I could be totally wrong, depending on how Elko decides to call the game. The one thing I am going to look forward to is more of the secondary designed disguised blitzes.
Yeah.
And when they're called, because I felt like, although I understood what Bateman was doing, and I understand when Bateman was doing it, and I don't essentially hate it, I just feel like he mistimed the blitzes a lot. Like
Yeah.
he blitzed when he should have probably played zone, and he played zone when he probably should have blitzed.
Yeah, I
Does
can
that make
see
sense?
that. I can see that. And I thought at times the well-disguised blitzes did work really well. I think about the LSU game. That's obviously a small sample size. It was working really well. But, yeah, I could see that timing and play selection improving this year. And the one thing we haven't talked about in regards to kind of pass rush, and you could even say this was part of the run stop, outside contain, is just overall improved execution in the secondary. I
Right.
think just, assignment, discipline, and communication will be better this year. I don't see how it isn't. I don't see
And
how it's at least marginally better.
that should lead to a marginally improved defense. And let's not undercut our defense because of what recent bias in our memories is. Our defense was pretty good last year. It was an easily top 25 last year. Did they have some hiccups? Yes. They have some heartbreaks? Yes. Was it more improved than what it was 2 years ago? Yes.
It was solid until they gave up a big play. And
Yeah.
the big plays would come at the hands of like a missed tackle in the backfield or a bust or something like that, and that would just swing a game.
Or miscommunication,
Yeah.
and it would always be one or two game, and we talked about it on a regular basis how it was really the young guys making it.
Yes.
For as solid as Ratcliffe was early in the year, I feel like as they tried to expand the playbook, he struggled with the communication aspect
It
of
was a
it.
young group, man. It was young top to bottom. Not only young in age and class, but young as a group together and in a first year system. So you had all that stuff working against them, and it freaking showed. And that was probably the reason for multiple losses on the year.
Yes, sir. I'm not worried about Javon Thomas.
Jeb, he's
I,
calling you out, Jeb.
Javon has played against some of the best teams in Texas. He even won state at South Oak Cliff. He knows what he's dealing with, and he just has to get the playing time and the experience. When you don't give these young guys playing time and experience, they're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Chappelle struggled at times his freshman year, and he was also shut down at times his freshman year.
Yeah.
Jalen Jones, all these guys that Elko has put faith in,
Yeah.
has struggled at different points in their careers, and at other times they have absolutely been rock solid. And You could go to Leon. You can go to Antonio Johnson. You just name players, and you can all tell that there was a brief period in time, especially early in their years on the team, they struggled with it, and that's because the communication is so key in Elko's system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I mean, again, I'm not giving up on Javen Thomas either, or any of those sophomores for that matter, including Des Ricks, who's basically a freshman, kind of a sophomore, you know. But I would say sophomore to junior year two of a system is a pretty pivotal season for a lot of these guys. I think it's very much a
Yep.
prove it season for the Javens, the Des Ricks, the Dalton Brooks. I'm really high on Dalton Brooks. I still believe in Ratcliffe. This is it though. And I tend to believe we'll at least get like this improvement we're talking about in communication and just being a solid player. But it's got to play out, man. We've got to see it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I pretty much echo all of what you're saying. I think we've covered a good amount here. Any closing thoughts? Any other things you're specifically looking for?
Yeah. Football or sports wise in general? Which one you want?
If you want to go sports wise, I'm down.
All right. I'm going to go sports wise.
Which one? Where we going? Oh no.
I'm going to start basketball first.
Okay.
Will I'm begging our fan base, and I know it's not the group that we talk to on a regular basis that is doing this, but for the love of God, quit complaining about the type of recruit we can bring in if we're not willing to give Buzz the NIL money that he needs to compete for the recruits that we want him to get. A year after year, for the last 3 years, Buzz has mentioned something about not getting the support that these basketball programs and these basketball teams deserve. 3 years ago, it was about how they had to share locker rooms with the girls team and the volleyball team when the season had begun in November.
Yeah.
The volleyball team would be ending, basketball team would be beginning, and they had to share locker rooms. They didn't have their own players' lounge just for the basketball teams. Then he talked about how Reed Arena needed to be redone and reinvented and possibly rebuilt just last year. This year, right after the NIL tournament in Vegas, he came on Texags and stated, I had to prevent us from going to the Bahamas again this year to be in that tournament in Vegas because I needed us to have the NIL money. That tells you for 3 years in a row when your coach is begging on radio and social media and media services like that he needs these things for his team to be successful. This administration and our fan base is not supporting him at the level we expect him to have success with, nor does he have the ability to recruit the players that he needs to have the success that we expect of him. He is doing what he can with what he has. He did it at Marquette, he did it at Virginia Tech, and he's doing it here. Do I wish it was better? Yes. But the only way to get better is if we put the effort into the basketball program as fans and as an administration. And we need to demand that of this administration if we want a better basketball program. It's the same thing that, I don't even want to say the snake guy's name, did for our baseball team. When he got here, he made those demands for our baseball program. Slowly and surely, he got the recruits that he needed to prove that it can be done with what he had. And as he did, the program got better, and we started putting more funds into our baseball team. And that's why our baseball team now, 4 years later, has the expectation that it has because of what Snakes started 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The same thing is happening with basketball, except for whatever reason, we're being slower to reciprocate this thing to basketball. And I can't stand how much we complain in social media about Buzz can't get this player, Buzz can't recruit this person, Buzz can't do this, but yet our stands are 75% full, even with a top 10 team. We can't sit here and complain about one thing and the lack of success without giving him the resources he needs to have success.
Yeah,
And it's the
I
same.
agree. I agree with a lot. most of what you're saying. I mean, what Buzz is doing right now is the end of like a 3-year development system with all the same players, and this is the kind of run that a lot of times what we think of as like lesser programs. That's how they go on their runs. That's how they have their Sweet 16 runs, and that's what we're doing right now. It's not like this is a ready-made program, because I see a lot of just fire
Yep.
buzz out there. I see a lot of we need this guy gone. He can't win the big game. It's like I think Buzz has gotten the most out of the roster he has right now, and he also has them playing in a way that covers their deficiencies. So a lot of what you're seeing that is good is because of Buzz, and it's also why I partially won't blame Buzz for moving on, because he
Right.
loses all of his players. It's hard to get players to come here at the highest level, and it's like a full rebuild in that environment. So if he comes
Yep.
back, what a guy! I mean, he's gung ho for this whole rebuild through these conditions. But it's not like the next coach, most likely. I mean, anything can happen. But it's not like the next coach is all of a sudden going to be able to just turnkey and do it.
Flip it around. Yep.
So it's really tough. And we see these things move slowly. I mean, now we're getting the baseball renovations. I think baseball will be the full focus going forward. I think it's a good investment, because I think baseball is one of the fastest growing sports right now. College baseball is. So we'll see where that leads us. And I think basketball is probably on the back burner for several more years, Theo. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And
Unfortunately, and so I'm begging our fan base to have the patience that
yeah.
we're going to need in order for that to be the case.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, Buzz, obviously, he's not a perfect coach. I mean, he makes mistakes. We've talked about it, but a lot of coaches do. A lot of coaches do make mistakes, and a lot of coaches have 5-star talent to, erase some of these mistakes. And we don't have that. We have a veteran team that plays really hard, that takes after its coach, that rebounds the ball to make up for their offensive deficiencies, that plays really hard defense. And I think we thank Buzz and this group for buying into what Buzz wants to be and does. So I'm going to appreciate him while he's here. If he moves on, that's another conversation. It might happen.
I think of us as Tennessee light. If we had the 5-star
I don't like you calling
players
us light.
I don't either. But if we had the 5-star players that Tennessee has, we would absolutely be just as good as Tennessee.
Oh, you mean this year with their elite defense and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then
we'll see, though. I still
baseball.
think this team is capable of winning games in the tournament. I think he has them playing at that point. It's not a guarantee. It's probably going to be tough, but they could win. They can make it to the Sweet 16. It's on the table.
Nothing's a guarantee in sports, and we got to stop acting like it is.
Yeah.
Just sit back and enjoy the moment, because these moments are far fleeting. Even though we lost today, I think I mentioned it to you in chat. We were talking in Twitter during the game, and I was like, this basketball team feels like last year's baseball team. At any moment, they can blow the game, or they can blow the game wide open. It's just a matter of which side happens. And it's a magical feeling. They have the talent, they have the stuff, they can do it. Now, will they do it?
Yeah.
And we just sit back and enjoy it. Same thing for baseball.
Quick on baseball, because I want to have you read a couple chats. Be quick on baseball, then I'm going to get you out of here, because I want to. Jeb responded to you, so I want to get to that.
I have not watched very much of baseball this year, but from what I've seen and what I'm watching and listening and hearing, we got to realize that although we kept the majority of the team that we have right now is not the team we expected to have going into the season, because of the injuries that have happened.
Yeah.
And the way things have worked out so far. They have not worked out the way we thought it would. We thought Benderup was going to get ready to take that next step. He hasn't. And so therefore this team is trying to find itself. And last year we had already found ourselves at certain points in the season. So we were able to roll off big wins.
Yeah.
And I feel like we just need to sit back and allow this team to figure out who they are, and they will be fine, because they have the talent to overcome where they're at.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're
sit back
absolutely
and enjoy
right.
the ride.
It's not this insane, returning talent roster that we thought it was, because you're missing a few guys there. A couple of the games that they dropped are due to cold bats from places where you didn't expect it. That needs to come back. That needs to get better. And I think we're seeing certain guys pick up, But you can't just, disappear in a midweek. It feels really bad. I think the vibe would feel a lot differently if he didn't drop that last game right now. Because I do feel like the Bats are trending in the right direction. I think there's a good chance they can get a couple wins this weekend. But we'll see. Yeah, well said. Can't wait to get Sorrell back. It'll be a few weeks, but you won't get Gavin back. Who knows what happens to Josh Stewart. But I wanted to read a couple of chats to you, Theo. They're responding to you. I actually think I agree with Noble here. I get what you were getting at. But he says, not sure I would compare basketball this year to last year's baseball team. Way more talent in the baseball team last year. Actually capable of winning the Natty and could be predicted to do so last year. Elite Eight is our aspirations in basketball this year. Big difference in expectation. I don't know if I remember the baseball team last year as being one that would just blow random games. Theo?
There was a few. We blew a bunch of random games early in the season last year. We struggled
in conference
against,
play. We didn't lose a non-con.
In non-con, we struggled at times.
We didn't lose though.
I remember when we were in Houston last year for the little tournament that they have every year. There were several games where I was like, "Oh, this just feels like the year before when we had dropped those games."
But we won them.
And we won them. But there was times that I'm like, "Oh, here we go again." Right? This basketball team is the same way. At any given moment, they can win it, hence beating Auburn, or they can lose it, hence dropping the game tonight.
Yeah, that's true. I've felt that way about this team for a while now. The way they play, it doesn't really cultivate easy wins. It makes a lot of competitive games, so things can swing any given game. But that also gets them in a lot of games that maybe you wouldn't think of as equal talent level at matchups that you can still find a way to win because of the way they play. So
Yep.
It works both ways. I want to get back real quick. Last thing with you, Theo, then we want to Noble, is when you talked about Javen and how you still believe in him. Jeb, his response was, that was high school football. Thomas has plenty of experience now. Chappelle was phenomenal his second year. Jalen Jones was awesome his freshman year. And Jeb still doesn't trust Javen for long periods of time on the field. So we'll see.
Practice time is not game time. Chappelle had plenty of game time as a freshman. So did Jalen Jones. Both of them got to play as freshmen. We did not get C.J. Von Thomas until, the fifth game of his sophomore year. And nothing beats game experience. That's just plain and simple. For a young guy like Javon Thomas, who has all the speed and agility in the world, he needs to know how to play that game instinctively. And you cannot learn that unless you get beat a few times against other high-quality players.
I agree with that. I agree with the core of what you're saying. I'm going to correct you in one spot. He did start his freshman year. He was the starter through fall camp, and he lost the job. But he did get hurt this year and didn't practice for a good portion of the year.
He also got hurt last fall camp. That's why he redshirted.
No, he didn't redshirt. He started the first game of the year last year.
I swear he's a redshirt sophomore.
He probably still got the red shirt, but
yes.
he did play in camp, and he was the starter game one. And then I forget which game he ended up losing the job to either DeBerry or someone else. It was, regardless, I think jury's still out. I think you both make fine points. We shall see. But anyway, Theo, thanks for the call, man. It was a good long call. Good catching up with you, man. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. And let me know if you go to the spring game. I might be able to swing something through.
Okay, I'm right now 50-50. I have an event that day, but we shall see. All right, I'll let you know. I'll put the word out. All
yes,
right.
Sir.
Later.
All
right, let's check in with the chat one more time. Yeah, they were 30-0 in conference. We slumped in April, but in conference for a little bit, but that was it. Maybe we're referring to the 2023 season we lost to Stanford. We were a top 5 team ranked. Yeah, I get what he was saying, and it's true about the basketball team, but I don't know about the comparison. That's right. Javen got torched in Miami. No, he eventually got benched. I don't know if he was playing much after the first few games his freshman year, Jeb. Losing the job at DeBerry is a tough look. Yeah. And I gave him credit for making his way back into the lineup this last season because he was the first off the bench at corner, and he got hurt mid-season, and it was altering the way he played. Anyway, Noble guy, what's up?
Yo, what's up, Drew? What's up, Drewtamu Nation?
Drewtamu Nation. No, I'm pretty.
Oh, Drew, you cut out there. You can't.
Hold on. Let me fix it. Let me remove. I cut myself out by grabbing the mic. All right, we got it back. I grabbed the mic too aggressively and unplugged it. Yeah, Drewtamu Nation's kind of, we're reeling a little bit, man. We've had some baseball, failure to launch a little bit of stuff, and the basketball game kind of sucked today, but we're fighting through.
Yeah, the basketball thing, well, that sucks just because of, anyway, that sucks. Anyway, but moving on.
We know why it sucks.
I will say, we know why it sucks. I will say this much on the basketball thing because I'm not a basketball.
Yeah. You're
aficionado.
You're a baseball specialist and a football ball knower.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
But he's right about we do, like, as far as the big three school, the big three sports go at our school. Basketball is on the back burner, but then so is it. It's pretty much that way for every Texas school except for maybe Texas Tech, and I mean, football is king, obviously, and then for the most part, baseball is the secondary sport for every other Texas school. Texas Tech is the only one that takes kind of exception to that because they put football on the back burner. It seems like of those three. I think that's just.
I agree, it is, but I will say I think there are some schools that invest a little bit more into basketball than even A&M does. I know Texas has top of the line facilities. They've invested in basketball, maybe relatively not as much. Hasn't Baylor gone through some renovations recently? I think some Texas schools have given it a little bit more recent love.
Baylor. Actually, I can't. Yeah, you're right. Baylor. There are more schools that invest more. That is correct.
I think we're the norm in that it's definitely the third fiddle, but I think A&M in particular has it a couple of rungs lower than most. That's how I feel. I don't know.
That's fair, and credit to Buzz to make it work with what he's got. I will say, and again, this is me not knowing ball at all. Like, I was surprised when Billy Kennedy got axed when he did because he had some good years. But what do I know? I'll pivot to something I have a little bit more knowledge on.
All right, fair.
Which is this football team. So I won't comment too much on the DBs because I don't know a whole lot about the secondary, so I'm just gonna. The only thing I want out of the secondary is, for the love of God, play zone. I'm really curious to see, what having Elko call the plays again, is gonna do for the entire team. Because the things we need to focus on were, I feel like the guys, at least the front seven, were in the right place, like you said. A very sound assignment, but then they forgot how to do the basic wrap up and tackle, whereas the secondary never got a hold of how to play a zone properly, which is pretty critical. You
could see it when it was time to hand off assignments. You had two guys standing in a 1-by-1 yard square. It would happen too often. It would be the safety in the corner. Both go to the wrong assignment. Or both go to the same assignment. It was just that communication and that zone flow. I'm not a secondary guy either. I'm not super literate in the lingo. But you could definitely see that there was a problem with zone defense. And, that affects pass rush. That affects confidence. That affects momentum. It's just a major ripple effect on defense for sure.
Yeah, and secondary is one of those things where you can play so well everywhere else on the defense, but if you make one mistake, it's the place that will kill you the most.
Yeah, it opens the floodgates. It opens up,
It really does, and you can never bury someone away because they'll always a threat to come back, and they did sometimes. It was anyways. Moving on to we'll see how much improvement. I will say. We have Bateman again for another year. It is what it is. This was kind of what I was wondering what this was going to look like from the day one when we first hired him. Is okay. So I'm glad that Elko went and hired someone he trusts and knows. But for what I would have thought, I would have liked to see him go after a big name or someone just very well experienced in the Power 5. Or especially the SEC or some equivalent level, because the whole reason is Elko's taking over the reins because he can't fully trust his DC to take on that full responsibility. And I wonder how long, how is that going to look for over the tenure of his career? Is that the one bright side to this is that you're always hey, no one's coming after your DC. You'll have continuity year after year after year, but then also you kind of want somebody to come after your DC. The whole,
I thought Elko explained it pretty well. I don't remember which interview it was. It was either Texags or Josh Pate talking about just the value of keeping continuity specifically in a year two relative to changing language and changing lingo and
Yeah.
bringing in other philosophies, particularly going into a year two where you're finally stamping in all the novel philosophies and stuff that you're getting in a year one. I understand him. I know we were all calling for the Bateman move and we thought it was going to happen for a while, but I understand that you think there's more value in that. And I think there might be. There's a good chance it is. And you did make a very significant change. Mike Elko being the play caller is a very significant change for the defense. It's a totally new mind behind the in-game decision-making in terms of your X's and O's. So maybe it gives you the best of both worlds there. You keep the continuity, you keep the relationship, you keep the language. But again, the thing that we were worried about with Jimbo is, like, does that kind of take the coach away from other duties? Does it hurt your team in other ways? That's the thing we have to watch for sure.
I think for now we're willing to make that trade off, just because we got to see, what he can do. Defenses, baby, you can't, if you specialize in one field as a, a coaching hire, you got to, make sure that side of the ball is good. It's kind of like, Auburn hiring Hugh Freeze, and then they were kind of bad at offense all year, for his entire tenure. So like he took over the play calling, I believe, this year. So similar idea. Hopefully we have more success than he did.
Yeah.
At Auburn. And then I know we hired a secondary coordinator or something like that, analyst, to kind of alleviate more pressure off of him. It was like from a smaller school, if I recall.
I believe he was very successful as a DC at a smaller school. I have to look into it.
Yeah. So he definitely made moves on that front. From a more big picture perspective, I'm very curious to see like the style we play our game at. Like last year, I would describe us as Tennessee Light.
No, not again.
Tennessee Light.
You heard Theo say that, right?
Yeah, but he described that for our basketball team.
I know. It's just like,
and then, but for our, I would say that was definitely true of our football team, where we were a power run team. And we played great defense, and then we passed enough to, win. That was the game strategy going into the season, and then that got,
Fair.
we had to evolve as time went. I will say one of the encouraging things about the throughout the season was, like with Jimbo, when we lost, it was the same movie every week. It was like play close enough, or go down, then play close enough to, be in the game the last 2 minutes and break your heart, not win the game. And it's like either the defense couldn't get a stop or you scored less than 20 points a game. It was one of those three things, or all of them. With A&M down the stretch, it felt like a bunch of different problems spring out, like a bunch of little holes everywhere. And that's probably, the signs of year one, where you're trying to take on a lot of different assignments and understanding of your new scheme. And then every week you're trying to fix one thing and another thing crops up. Like, one week it's the passing game can't go in. Another week the secondary is getting obliterated. Another week the rush defense is getting obliterated. And different problems. So like, I will say I think anticipate a big step up in most categories across the board, especially on offense. What I really want to focus on is, the more I think about it, the offense has the capability of taking massive steps forward.
Really
I was
does.
thinking like this year, I would have said like a 2 tight end set suited us the best, just because our wide receivers, for lack of a better term, was such a liability. As far or lack of weaponry. When we ran 3 receivers set, that
It
might
was
be a better way
like
of phrasing
you
it.
would rather just go 2 tight end and lean into your strengths than even have the
Exactly.
extra receiver bodies out there at times.
Yeah, this year. Well, earlier on, I would have said 3 receiver set for sure. Now it's with we're uncertain on the wide receiver depth chart. But I still think we're really good in both rooms, and I'm curious to see, which one do we have a preference for? Do we have a preference for a 2 tight end set? I still think, the overall ceiling of our wide receiver room is better, but I also know Colin Klein likes 2 tight end sets.
I think we have a chance to be extremely diverse offensively, right? Because the tight ends, you add 2 quality blocking tight ends in the portal, and you add Amari Nyblack. You have Theo Mellon-Orstrom coming back. You have a lot of tight end bodies you're willing to use. You should be better in goal line because of it. And you can go based on defensive strengths, based on defensive game plans. you can mix and match as you see fit because you also have so many weapons that can either catch out of the backfield like Bussy or Ruben Owens, and then more weapons at receiver. So, and on top of that, you have what could be an elite O-line. I mean, it's possible this O-line is what we would, label as elite. That's on the table. It's 5 returning starters on an O-line that was like a B-level O-line last year. I mean, that's a recipe for a really good freaking offense. Right there.
Yeah, I think so. And another thing is like, people are, questioning Colin Klein for, whatever reason. And there's various reasons out there. Some of them are legitimate, of course. But
yeah.
I think one thing you can say for sure is that Colin Klein isn't married to any particular like one way of doing things. You saw him evolve throughout the offseason. And then even at the beginning of the season, you saw him design a scheme and a game plan to fit around a quarterback called Connor Wegman that is not, typical like Colin Klein offense.
Yeah.
And then he likes to run a lot more, QB run and have a mobile quarterback threat. And then he essentially built a power run, almost not quite pro style, but very similar offense. And it worked for a little bit, and then we had to pivot away from that when Marcel became the guy. Mm-hmm. You saw that constantly being evolved. I'm excited to see, what kind of evolution we can go through in the offseason. We're talking about Marcel taking giant steps as a passer. We already know what he can do with his legs. And then I think maybe the biggest improvement we can see is from Terry Bussey. Like we talked about all these new additions at wide receiver room, rightfully so. Like but especially with, depending on what, I anticipate Mario Craver being there. I love when we got Mario Craver because I feel like he's such a floor raiser for us. Like if he's your third receiver, that is a great third receiver option to have. And I feel like Terry Bussey is both a floor raiser and a ceiling raiser. I'm curious to see where, how much it progressed, because last year he was training as a DB all, off season and through fall camp, and then swapped out the last second to play wide receiver. And now he's got a chance to really, hone his craft at that position. And he's such an athlete.
Yeah, I think there's a chance he looks like a totally different player next year. I think at times there was definitely like a confidence thing and like a just processing speed for him in his youth and being in the role that he had. And I think we'll see him, just play with a little bit more conviction this year, be more comfortable, be himself. And I think just play with a little bit more swagger, if you know what I'm saying. I think you're so right. I think he has a chance to have such a jump in play just because of everything you just detailed. The position change, being second year in college, getting that experience under his belt, having a pretty damn good bowl game. I think Terry Bussey, Casey Concepcion, that could be dynamic at receiver. I mean, you could go 2 tight end, have your power running attack, have your RPO attack available there that involves tight ends and or receivers, and just have weapons everywhere. But a lot of this is going to come down to Marcel, right? I mean, I would just think that that's kind of the big pressure point with the offense is what do you get from the quarterback position? And again, I believe, but we got to see it. So
the thing is, like, you can alleviate a lot of that pressure on Marcel because we got our bread and butter. We got Le'Veon Moss back, presumably.
I hope so. I think so. It sounds positive, right? Like the stuff Elko said recently and the stuff we've seen.
I'm going to go off the notion of Le'Veon's back because we forget how good he was through his, when he was like the first 8 games or whatever it was. I mean, he even by the end of the season, even with him not playing the last 4 or whatever games it was, he still was like a top 4 rushing running back in the SEC.
Did he finish top 2 in yards per carry, something like that?
Something like that. Like I know Tennessee overtook him, and then maybe nobody else, and he may not even be able to replicate that, and that could be a good thing because we're gonna get Ruben Owens. And I think if all we need is we don't even have to be that good of a passing team. If we just take a step forward in the passing game, I mean, one's going to help each other out. Now all of a sudden, Casey Concepcion you're going to give him 1-on-1. I mean, you got, and then if you have let's say you have a lockdown DB, you're willing to go 1-on-1. All right, great. You got Terry Bussey and Mario Craver in this, on the opposite side of the slot.
Yeah. Dude, it can be so
And
much fun. You got the O-line to do it. I mean, it's great.
I'm I'm just excited because when we play the new NCAA game next year, like finally I can have an offense where I can feel comfortable. Like, okay, it's okay. I can, if it's the 2-minute drill and I need to go score a touchdown, I'm not like absolutely panicking.
I would just have a bad time, dude. It was a bad time jumping online with A&M, and any big moment of the game, you need a big pass. It's like drop.
Drop. It was like I felt like we did so dirty, but I was like, I get it. The rankings are what they are, or the ratings, I should say.
Yeah, and I guess they can't really like emulate like lack of receiver production in any other way in the video game than just having them drop more balls than usual.
Exactly.
So
yeah, which
it was
was
brutal. It'll
frustrating.
be better this year. Dude, it'll be fun to play as KC in these games, huh?
Wait, you're telling me.
I know, Bussy too. He'll actually be in the game from the go this time. Get Ruben Owens in there back. He was so fun to play.
I have to do that move when every time I go online and play as A&M, I hit the pause button and then I'm like swapping through the roster as fast as possible because you got to reorganize the secondary depth chart as well. And I'm putting Tyreek Chappelle back in every single time. I'm like, he's on the bench. No, he's not.
I know.
He's in my head. He's healthy and he's playing. But on another macro level, real quick. I think the way we win games is going to look different. I'm hoping that the offense develops so much confidence that it becomes our new like sword, for lack of a better term. Like, hey, you know what? When we need to drive, because that's what it felt like against moments against Auburn and then even against USC, where we was like, we need to drive, we need to score, we'll get it.
It was trending that way, like it wanted to kind of flip that way, and it kind of did. I mean, did Marcel Reed not have last-minute go-ahead scores in both of those games?
He did, and that's another thing. It's like clutch. Like it felt like A&M hasn't had a clutch player in a long time. Like back in the day, it was like if you need a play made, like you had Mike Evans, he would make the catch. If you needed a big time sack, you had Von Miller or even Myles Garrett. The big time players make big time plays. Anais Smith.
Dude, freaking like I know, and like even what was it? It was like Kellen and Spiller in 2020 were at least timed with some of their big plays, and like
I mean, I liked I think Jamon Osmond was his name.
Yeah,
wasn't like the most productive receiver, but we also didn't have offense for him to be productive in. But like he made big time plays. Yeah, and I think we're gonna and then Marcel brings that. I don't know what it is. It's just an instinct in you that like, hey, you'll get better, but then. I mean, it's crazy. I'm excited to see the steps forward we're going to take. And then, again, the way I think the defense, there's everyone's got a lot of concerns about the defensive line, but I think with Elko's, personal touch on this defense can at least replicate their, success from last year, even with lesser players. And if they can do that, or even get to a pretty dang close, that's a really good spot to be in.
Yeah, and
hell, if we're even like a few points worse.
Yeah. But even like glass half full, I mean, this is definitely glass half full speak. Like, yes, you had great NFL potential talent on the D line, but it's not like they were giving you great productivity late in the season. It's not like post LSU they were playing up to that level. So the drop off from that point, that was a pretty low point in the year. It shouldn't be that much. And if the secondary improves, I mean, it could be improved. It could be a quality defense. It could be maybe worse down to down, but not give up the huge jailbreak plays that killed us so many times. And that would probably be an overall improvement.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's very glass half full speak.
What else am I gonna do in spring?
Empty. Yeah, exactly. The glass half empty take is like, okay, we're just soft on the D line. We get pushed around. Teams can just run. I mean,
I recognize that could be an issue. I just think we can be better despite that.
Yeah. I know. Well, all right, Noble. Any closing thoughts, man? It's a good talk.
Oh, great talk. Man, I haven't talked about A&M football in a minute, but
I know. Now that we could go too long, but we're gonna keep doing these shows the next few weeks, so I'll bring up some more talking points to get us into. For sure.
Yeah, curious to see what players look like in the spring and all that. But real quick, as far as baseball goes, like this is where the test begins. Conference play.
That's where it really matters.
I'm. What's up?
I said this is where it really matters.
Yeah, I'm pretty is bullish?
Bullish is good.
Bullish. Yeah, bullish. That's right. Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on the A&M team right now. I think, despite everything, our secondary, our secondary, what am I saying? Our pitching will always keep us in it. The defense has been so much better. Defense is one of those things where you're like, you kind of got to fix instantaneously. You're going to be doomed for that for the rest of the season. And I was massively impressed
It's gotten
by
fixed, right?
yeah, well, knock on wood and all that. This is baseball. We got to be superstitious as hell.
Yeah.
And but no, it does look significantly better. And then the hitting, they just their bodies, everything about their body language looks better. The contact looks better. It's not where it needs to be, not anywhere close to it. What their standards should be. But it's trending in the right direction. The real question is, have we trended it enough to beat Alabama, because they're playing pretty good. But this could be, and this is some insane hopium talk, is that like the reason why our, like especially Jace in particular, but as a team, when you see a lot of contact, but not necessarily a lot of home runs or even balls falling where we want them to.
That was the problem Sunday. A lot of contact, but just grounders, pop flies. Yeah.
Well, it's great because a lot of these weaker teams, they'll have guys who will throw soft and a lot of off speed against us versus, fastballs. Like we're talking like, MLB quality, like 94, 95 mile per hour fastballs. You're going to see a lot of that more in the SEC. Yeah. However, and I think it was Kendall Rogers who said this on his own podcast, where this could be a good thing that you're facing, harder pitching essentially, because all of a sudden those pop outs that were falling just a couple feet out from the yard into a glove, it was because they hit like an 88 mile per hour, curveball or something like that. And now it's a 95 mile per hour fastball, and that's going to pop.
A little more velo on those. Yeah,
exactly. So
we'll see, man. I hope so. That was exactly the problem on Sunday. I was live for that game. It was like, man, we're making contact almost every at bat. Like there were only like 3 strikeouts that we had, but everything was just like fly ball, deep, dirt. Like it just wasn't good contact. And maybe what you're saying is exactly what we need.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, fingers crossed. Knock on wood. Put the rally caps on everything. It's conference play time. It's time to buckle up and
there's real consequences now. There's real consequences outside of just vibes now. It's like the real deal starts tomorrow, but it's Ryan Prager Day, so we got that to lean on. All right, Noble.
Yes, sir.
You have a good one, man. Good talk.
You too. Let's get Jeb on.
He's up. He's up. Drag. Yeah, it sucked. We talked about it at the top of the show. I'm not trying to relive it, but it was bad, Drag. It was bad, man. But here we're talking football to close the show out. Last caller of the night, it's Jeb. Jeb returns. How you feeling, man?
I know, man. It's been a while, huh?
Yeah, you're getting chippy. Your first day back in the chat, you're getting chippy with the callers. I kind of like it.
Hell yeah. No, that dude makes some good points, but I guess we're just gonna dive right into it. Yeah, I think when it comes to like Javion Thomas, like, yeah, I get it. He's only played 2 years. There are some guys who are late bloomers. I can name a ton of Aggies who were like that, who did nothing their first 3 years.
Oh, Jeb, your phone might have gone to sleep. I might have lost Jeb. Oh, no, he's back.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. I mean, I've known plenty of guys who were great in high school, but when you go to college, it's a different game. It's a different speed. And the thing about corner's probably my personal opinion, corner is one of the hardest positions to play in football.
Yes.
And it's all about confidence. But I've seen him play these last 2 years. He was not good. So that's my personal opinion.
Well, then what do you think of guys like Des Ricks or Dalton Brooks? Those guys have made their fair share of mistakes too. They're the same age. I mean,
yeah, I guess because we're a little bit high on Des Ricks because he was a 5-star coming out of high school and he was technically a true freshman playing this year. I think he has more upside. JV, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm one of those guys where I'm like, you either have it or you don't. If I see it early and it doesn't get better, I don't know. But like I said, yeah, he's going into his junior year. He could be really good for all we know. You just never know.
You just don't think it's necessarily going to go that way.
I don't think.
Seen.
Well, he's cornerback number 4 right now. He's going to be behind Ricks, Lee, and then the guy from
Humphrey.
Georgia.
Yeah.
So he might see some playing time here and there, but I don't trust him for long periods of time. I think you could play him for a couple reps, but in terms of like long periods of the game or starting, no.
Well, we'll see. I'll acknowledge that we've seen what you're talking about in the past, but I would also say that this last year we had a lot of problems in the secondary, and I think if we're gonna kind of condemn him, or not necessarily condemn, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that
no,
it might
for sure.
be the end for him. That I think that same dialogue could be thrown around to a lot of guys in that secondary, and I just think being in a year 2 of a system can add a lot to those guys. And I wanted to make this point too, Jeb. We're going into a year 2, and like the year 1 excuse is over, so the pressure's on now. It's like we can't say, "Oh, this is year 1" anymore. It's like, all right, you've had your year of kind of working on the fly. Things should be a little bit more established now. I don't know how we approach that this year. I think we could see a lot of improvement, but it's like I feel like the pressure's going to be on now. I feel like we're not ready to be patient again.
Oh no, like it's weird, man. It's weird. Like March is going by so quick. Like when that USC game ended, I was like, dude, I'm kind of glad it's coming to an end. I can't handle this anymore.
Yeah.
It was like, 3 or 4 straight losses. I'm like, I can't handle this anymore, man. Like this is nerve wracking. I've gotten to the point now, I guess, as I age, that like, I don't even get mad anymore, man. I'm just like disappointed. I just sit there in my chair. And I'm just like, dude, why do I let this upset me so much?
Dude, I kind of felt the same way today at the basketball game. But yeah, football's obviously the
And then but now it's like I'm excited. I mean, what are we, like 5 months away till the season? I mean, I'm excited again.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk about for sure. I mean, secondary, definitely keep an eye. I was hoping we'd bring in a couple more guys to elevate the secondary, just because secondary was not very good last year down the stretch.
Yeah.
I think the issue I saw from the secondary last year was just speed. I think they were slow.
I don't know. I know Dalton Brooks is not slow, but the others, I guess.
Radcliffe is slow.
Radcliffe is a slower. He's a strong.
Ricks is slow.
Is Des Ricks slow?
Hell, dude, he got burnt a lot. So yeah, you're slow. If you're getting burnt a lot,
no, it doesn't mean. It could just mean you're just a raw player that makes a false step. You take one false step against a college level player, you're gonna get burnt. I don't care if you run a 4.2.
Big corners make me nervous sometimes, man.
Yeah.
Big, like because
that's what Elko likes, though.
I like long corners too because they can cover ground. But like Des Ricks, he's big, man. I mean, if you see him like on the practice field and stuff, he's big.
Yeah.
And so it's like when I see a corner that big, you're either a freak or you're slow. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I hope he's really good next year. There's a good chance he may not start, though. There's a good chance the other guy from Georgia could start.
There's a chance, but the point I'm going to be hammering in, Jeb, and it's okay if we don't agree. It's just like
it makes it fun.
I'm okay. Like, yeah, add guys if they're available, but I think there's enough ammo in this secondary.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm not satisfied, man. You sound like Jerry Jones right now.
You think I sound like Jerry Jones, dude? I'm not going down that path. Don't you put that on me, Jeb?
We like our guys. That's famous Jerry Jones. We like our guys. I don't think
different in college, man. You're not stuck with your guys for 8 years or 20 years or whatever you're getting stuck with your guys for.
But I mean, if your team last year, if your defense looked bad, you're gonna try to elevate those guys. You're gonna try to add more pieces to the defense. And I just don't think we added enough.
I guess, but it's different because like these are young dudes. These are sophomores in high school. I mean, in college mostly. Freshman age and Des Ricks, year 1 of a system. I mean, there should be massive improvements across the board. Especially
if Elko is calling the defense.
Yeah, that is definitely a factor. But just like the plays where you had, like I said, 2 guys standing in the same spot, like just the mental lapses. To me, like there's no speed issue there. There's no like talent issue there. That's players just screwing up and not knowing where they're supposed to be.
I don't know. I saw Florida torch us over and over in the top. We got lucky we blew them out. But there were times where like they made our secondary look silly.
Yeah, Bryce Anderson had a big disappointment in the year. We haven't even talked about
Bryce. Yeah, he was a guy that
big comeback.
See, he's one of those guys that he's weird too because obviously he's very talented, but he's kind of like he's like a tweener. He's kind of like undersized. He's like kind of small to be a safety. I don't know if he's fast enough to play nickel or athletic enough. That's what I'm saying. Safety's a weird position because safety, they're not your best athletes on your field.
Right.
And so safety is one of those positions where like not a lot of guys are like super athletic.
That's why I really like Dalton Brooks though, because I do think he's one of the better.
Yeah,
athletes on
I
the
agree.
team.
I'm pretty high on Brooks. I didn't think he was terrible last year.
He was a victim of some of that zone confusion stuff for sure at times, several times.
And then the helmet-to-helmet calls like every game.
Yeah, that was like a four-game trend early in the year. But I thought he really helped our run stop when he got in, especially in like the outside stuff, the flats. He helped us tackling out there, but it's just that zone defense lapses. But
and then
I'll say this, kind of to your point that you're making about like needing replacements. I think they will improve. But if it's just a small improvement, that's not enough. It's not good enough.
I want bodies. I want
like
guys. I want guys to come. I want depth because last year too, we were a bad outside team on defense. Teams ran the ball outside on us continuously. That's because of lack of speed. Your linebackers are slow and your ends are slow. So that's why I was like, I like our linebacker group.
We're definitely slower at the Torian York at middle linebacker, but I think
I think he's gonna have a big year as a junior.
Should
but he's not. Yeah, but he's not super athletic, and that's why linebacker core right now. There's bodies, there's depth, but it's a lot of unknown guys. I mean, you have York and Scooby, and then you have Sanford, who I thought was okay last year. He looks undersized to me.
Super young guy as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, he's very young. We'll see. He's decent though. And then the other guys are all, they're unknown. I mean,
I'm high on them, but you're right. They're unknown.
They all have upside for sure. They're all talented guys, but there's no playing time. You have Lockhart, who's probably gonna be your backup Mike, and then I like Jernigan, but he also didn't really play. And then you have Two True Fish. That's why I was like, if there's a linebacker out there, I think you have to go get one. But they probably won't because they have. It's a 2 linebacker spot. They're not going to carry like 9 linebackers, but
yeah, it's another one of those things where it's like, yeah, if it becomes available, go for it. But
I
think you got to prioritize D-line still. Like that has to be
D-line.
Like
that's one
effort.
position. I kind of agree with what Theo said. I think defensively we might be disappointed this year, just because we do have a lot of good guys and a lot of experience. But your defensive line, that's been like your strength of your team the last 2 years, is becoming like your weakness. It's like I don't know about weakness, but it's not as deep.
It's a question mark for sure, and the depth is a question mark, and we're gonna have to see transfers pan out. Like there's no choice. Like it's gonna have to happen. It's not like
especially
you have a bunch of surefire things.
Interior D-line is really scary.
Depth wise, you have 2 quality starters, but beyond that, it's like freshmen.
Beyond that, it's like it's just a bunch of freshmen, and then Evan. I mean. Both. I would say strong side edge.
Has a chance to make noise, I guess.
I would say strong side edge and D tackle are very, very scary because strong side edge, you don't really know what you have.
Yeah.
I like Siri from Florida. I just don't know how good is he as a start. I think
he's gonna be really good, but he seems like an edge.
I think he's gonna play strong side.
He could. He's big. He could play strong side for sure.
I think the guy from Colorado, I don't know anything about him. I mean,
he looked really good, but he's coming off of a major injury. He looked really good. I think he was at Pitt before. He looked freaking awesome there, but big injury.
Really? Okay. Yeah, and then, everything else is kind of a unknown. Kendall Jackson, are they going to play Rink on the outside? I mean, I think they should go shopping for another at least big, kind of like a big strong side edge to help you with the run.
They should. We'll see. That's like the one area like they have. Like I see like you got to be aggressive. If you see opportunity there, go for it right away. The other ones, it's like you can add them, it can help. Like you say secondary and O-line. Sure, depth would love that. I think secondary, more competition's welcomed. We'll see, man. The defensive line's the biggest question I'm looking at. Do you want to say anything quickly on offense?
What'd you say?
Did you want to say anything quickly on offense?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of it all. Like we said about Connor last year, how Connor will take us as far as we can get. I think it's the same thing with Reed. I think the pieces are all there. You're gonna have a bunch of running backs now. Your offensive line's back. You're gonna have some pretty good receivers. I still think they need to add one more. I think they need a big outside receiver because they don't have that. They're all small.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have that utility. Like you don't even have that option right now, really.
You don't. I think losing Noah. Like if I had to choose between losing Noah or the dude from Tech, I would have loved to have kept Noah because he's an upperclassman. He has
He's
this. He
more
has the
proven
stats.
for what he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Tech guy, because he played in my town right now. I got to watch him play. Really good, really long strides, but I don't know, man. The situation's very weird.
It is. That's why I'm not even touching it until we hear otherwise. I just think he's not here.
I'm gonna speculate.
Oh, that's your prerogative.
I'm gonna cause some controversy here, and I'm gonna say things. I think it's a couple of things, man. I think it's either he didn't get what he wanted, so he's like holding out, or I think he got what he wanted, and he dipped.
Those are some accusations I know nothing about. That's your guess.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I'm gonna because, dude, we're living in an age now where they're with the NIL stuff, they're teaching college athletes how to be very greedy. I'm very old school with that nuance. And there were rumors going around that he had a list, but we all thought it was stupid. But part of me thinks, like, what if it was real?
But I don't know what you make of this, but Bronny did say it was totally fabricated. I mean, he's obviously on our side. He looks through our lenses, but he is well connected. He did.
But do you believe Bronny will tell the truth all the time?
No, but I would think for him to just completely dismiss it and not to lean into it whatsoever might be.
Oh yeah, I do agree. I mean, there could be a third option. He could be telling the truth and maybe needs a break. But my thing is like,
I just want to get clear. These are Jeb's takes, not mine. This is Jeb.
Yeah, this is me. You can disagree with me all you want. Listen, I see all these guys. They're getting paid. All right, they're getting paid to play football.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I get it. They're kids, but at the same time, they are adults. They're going to school for free. They're getting paid. We're paying you to play football, man.
Yeah.
Unless I switch spots with you, you won't. I'll switch spots with you. I'll get paid millions. Like, yeah. That's why it's like I feel sorry for people. Yes, for sure, I have sympathy for people, but at the same time, I don't. It's like
the sympathy runs short now. It runs than it was before.
With me personally, because it's like, oh, I get it, man. I don't know what you're going.
Uh-oh. I might have just lost Jeb. I'll try to get him back real quick. If we can't, we're going to call it. Let's see.
We're living in an age now where, like, mental health is a very big thing. But I do feel like in today's world, mental health is like kind of like an easy way out to get out of things. Like,
okay, I got to make this clear. I got to cut you off right there. The mental health bit was never mentioned in any of the official announcements regarding his situation.
I thought it was, though.
No,
I thought
the
it was,
mental health piece got added after the fact by people speculating about the situation.
Oh, well, man, that's what I assumed. If you're taking it, I mean, I thought they speculated that.
All we heard, no, the words that were used were for personal reasons. I just to put out there like what was actually said in terms of stuff that came from real sources is that it was for personal reasons. That was all we heard.
But that's kind of hand in hand though. When someone says personal reasons,
I'll let you cook. I just wanted to put it out there.
Okay, yeah, I'm not trying to get you like banned or anything.
No. I just wanted to put the correct info out there.
Okay.
You're not well, get me banned. You can say whatever the hell you want.
From my understanding, when someone says personal, I usually automatically think like personal health, like mental health when they say that. And if that's the case, man, I get it, but it's like, I mean, they're paying you, but you're like walking away. You know what I mean? It's like the NFL. It's like you're getting paid millions, and if you walk away from a game, it's almost like kind of like, like.
Maybe. I mean, I just don't know what happened. We just don't.
Oh yeah,
know
we're all just speculating here. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure, obviously.
But what if he comes back, Jeb? What then?
Oh, then hell yeah, I'll eat the crow. I'll be like, yeah, man, that's completely wrong. I'm a dumbass.
Yeah. All right.
But that's just kind of what I've gotten from it. Offensively, though, like I think the pieces are all there. It's just we gotta hope Reed. There's no excuses for Reed, man. Like he's a redshirt.
Yeah.
He's a redshirt sophomore. He's young. He's played pretty much a full season last year for just about.
Hey, it's not like a rookie or green or anything.
Yeah,
anymore.
I mean, if he's bad next year, he's just bad.
I don't see him being bad, and I really don't think that he was bad at any point last year. I think
No,
he was
I'm still
deficient
high
in
on him.
ways, but
Yeah, he played earlier than expected last year.
yeah, for
So
sure.
I
And
will give him that. I'm still very high on him, and now you got to give him a receiver. You gave him a receiving core in a way. I still think you need to add one more piece. Tight end's kind of a mystery too.
I just like to have 4 seniors in there to work with.
Can you believe that freaking Diamond Green went to freaking LSU, dude? That kind of pisses me off. Like you went to like the rival team.
Go on?
Like I get it. Diamond Green's one of those guys that I wish him the best, obviously, but I don't know, man. Those injuries we saw happen in Baylor Cup. Some of you guys remember Baylor Cup?
Oh, yeah.
From 2019. He was a #1 tight end recruit out of Texas. I think in the country too.
Yeah.
And he had one injury and it ruined his career, man. I think he's in the NFL right now, actually.
So it didn't ruin his career.
I mean, he didn't ruin his career. I mean, he's like a third string guy. I think I saw him.
You know what we're getting right now, Jeb? You know what this is? This is deep off-season Jeb with only 8 viewers in the chat just totally popping off. This is Jeb in the deep. No, they're not. They're not. This is just Jeb in the deep off season and where he goes. This is a classic off season Jeb rant.
Man. We're humans, man. Like we're saying as we feel right now. This is all authentic right now.
This is the real Jeb.
Diamond Green. I mean, I get it. I kind of assumed he was leaving. That's how guys from watching A&M football, from my experience, like from seeing it. Usually, guys that are injury prone or who haven't recovered from injuries tend to transfer somewhere else.
Yeah, look, so I would be more upset about Donovan Green, but I will say he did everything the right way here. So it's
yeah, he's a good dude.
I can't dude. I know I'm not my preferred destination, but I'm also not gonna shit on him or anything like that or like talk shit because he did.
But when it comes to playing
LSU,
when it comes to playing LSU, I hope he's terrible.
He probably will be.
I don't think he'll be the same guy. Like I think there's a chance he could. But in terms of like his injuries, I just don't think he's going to be the same guy.
I mean, I wish him individually the best, but not in a way that
makes
LSU
as a person for sure. Like I hope he does well, but again, at LSU, no, because LSU might be a scary team this year.
It could be. We'll see. We'll see. They have an offensive line situation to figure out. But all right, Jeb, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go eat. But
yeah, I gotta go to bed.
Thank you for the rant. We needed a good Jeb rant to get us going. We'll be back at it. We'll do some more football streams.
Any controversial opinions. I didn't care.
You brought them all today. You brought like 4 different controversial opinions today, Jeb.
That's what makes it fun, man.
This is This is fiery Jeb. This is Jeb pissed off. This is Jeb when you've given him 3 losing seasons in a row.
I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of these. These kids are soft, dude. They're soft nowadays.
Yeah. Jeb's gonna harden us up. All right, Jeb. You have a good night.
Later, man.
Later. All right. It ended with a good old Jeb rant. Beautiful night. Good old fashioned style show. Thank you guys for being here. I will let you know as soon as possible my live stream schedule for the weekend. I'm thinking we'll do 2 baseball games this weekend, so I will see you guys then. Until then, have a good one. See you very soon. Gig 'em.